There's something I need you to hear before we go any further. I'm not going to tell you to hustle harder. I'm not going to give you a 5-step morning routine or tell you that your dream is just one more grind session away. You've heard all of that. And if any of it was working the way they promised, you wouldn't be here right now, watching a video made by a 77-year-old man who learned most of what matters far too late to do much about it. My name is William, 77 years old, and for 60 of those years, I was living inside a story I never once stopped to question. A story somebody else wrote that I followed so faithfully, I mistook it for my own life. What I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes took me 6 decades to earn. If you're 25 hearing this, I need you to understand something. You're not watching this because you're bored. Something in you is already asking the question I didn't start asking until I was past 60. And the earlier you ask it, the more of yourself you get to keep. Whose life are you actually living? Not rhetorical. I mean it. It literally. Think about the choices you made this year, the job you're staying in, the relationship you're holding on to or afraid to start, the dream you keep telling yourself you'll get back to someday. Whose thinking is behind those choices? Yours? Or did you absorb it from somewhere? A parent, a culture, a fear, and then decide, without ever really deciding, that it was just the truth. That's what I did for 60 years. The moving finish line. We all play this game. I call it the I'll be happy when trap. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. Well, I'll be happy when the mortgage is burnt. I'll be happy when I retire. People look at me and say, there goes a man who made it. I whispered that to myself at 4 a.m, heading into the office. I told it to my wife when she asked why I was missing another dinner. Just a few more years, honey, then we'll be happy. And you know what? I got it. All of it. The vice presidency, the corner office, the pension most people would kill for. But when I got the thing, there was always another thing. The fear doesn't leave when your life gets better, son. The fear just finds something new to attach itself to. When I was poor, I worried about the rent. When I was comfortable, I worried about the market. The anxiety didn't change, only the price tag did. The cost of providing. Let me tell you something I'm not proud of. And I grew up watching my father, factory man, rough hands, tired eyes. I watched people look right through him like he wasn't there because he didn't have a title. I decided right then, maybe I was 10 years old, that wasn't going to be me. I was going to be somebody, so I worked. Lord, did I work 60, 70 hours a week, missing baseball games, missing dinners, missing my kids growing up. But I was providing. That's what I told myself every single time. I was building something. I was becoming somebody. but you can't provide your way into being present. They are not the same thing, not even close. If you've ever felt that exhaustion, that bone-deep tiredness of running a race you didn't sign up for because you're terrified of being nobody, hit the like on this. Not for me. As a way of saying to yourself, I see the pattern. You have to name this thing before you can break it. The wrong peak. By 52, I had my name on the door. People called me sir. I remember sitting in that office, looking out at the city, thinking, this is it. This is what I gave everything for. And I felt nothing. Not nothing exactly. Empty. Like I'd climbed the whole mountain and gotten to the top and realized I was on the wrong peak entirely. Here's what I finally understood. I wasn't chasing money. I wasn't chasing a title. I was chasing a feeling. I wanted to feel like I was enough, like I was worthy of being here. And I thought if I achieved enough, if I climbed high enough, the world would finally give me permission to be okay. But you don't need permission to be worthy. You can't buy that feeling. You can't earn it. You can't get it from a job title or a paycheck or the way people say your name in a meeting. That feeling, the feeling of being enough, I could have given that to myself at 25. I did it at 73. That's 48 years of postponed living. Now, here's what took me another decade on top of that to really understand. The beliefs that cost us the most are never the ones we know we're carrying. They're the ones we've buried so deep, we've stopped calling them beliefs at all. We call them reality. We call them common sense. We call them just the way things are. The story you're living has rules in it. Rules about what you're allowed to want, what kind of person you're allowed to be, what you're supposed to protect and risk and care about. Most people never examine those rules. They just follow them. And those rules were written for you by someone who was following their own inherited rules. Someone who loved you completely and was quietly, completely wrong about some of the most important things. That's not cruelty. That's how it travels. Through certainty, not malice. Someone who was everything to you told you something about the world with total conviction, and because you were young and they were everything, you didn't question it. You just absorbed it. The two kinds of elders. I'm 77 now. I look around at the people my age. I have friends who are 84 and still miserable because the neighbor has a newer car, still keeping score, still waiting for something outside of them to change so they can finally be okay inside. They're going to die angry, and it won't be because life was cruel to them. Or it'll be because they never once asked whose story they were living. Then I have friends like Earl, 86 years old, tiny apartment, knees that creak like an old floorboard, fixed income, health that isn't great. But Earl has a lightness I've never been able to fully explain. He isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. He told me once, William, I spent 60 years trying to be somebody. Now I'm just trying to be here. And it's so much better. That's the whole difference right there. It's not money. It's not health. It's whether you've stopped living inside someone else's story and started living inside your own. The saves moment. If you want to know what real freedom feels like, I'll tell you exactly what it is. Real freedom is not needing anything outside of you to be okay inside of you. Write that down. I'll put it somewhere you'll see it. Because everything around you, every advertisement, every scroll, every comparison is going to spend every waking second trying to convince you of the opposite. They need you hungry. They need you running. But you can decide right now, today, to stop. Save this video. Not because I said anything brilliant. I haven't. But there will be a moment, maybe 6 months from now or 6 years, when you're about to make a decision that feels obvious, but is actually just familiar. And familiar is not the same as right. When that moment comes, you'll want to have heard this again. The trap. Young people think happiness is at the finish line. I thought that my whole life. There is no finish line. You solve one problem, another shows up. That's not a failure of your life. That is life. If you're waiting until everything is perfect before you allow yourself to be present, you're going to wait until you're in a pine box. The journey is the destination. I used to hate that phrase. Sounded like something on a cheap postcard. Now I understand it completely. This is it. Right here. Right now. If you can't find some peace on the way to where you're going, you won't find it when you get there. The arrival doesn't feel like you think it will. I've been there. I promise you that. Most of what's out there is telling you how to get more. More money, more status, more optimized mornings. This channel is doing something different. We're talking about how to actually be more, how to stop performing a life and start living one. If that's the conversation you've been looking for, subscribe. That's what we're here for. The watch-through reward. I want to be precise about something because I don't want you walking away with the wrong lesson. I'm not telling you to quit your job and follow your passion. That's an easy conclusion, and it's not what I learned. What I learned is both harder and simpler than that. The question isn't whether the story you're living is good or bad, successful or unsuccessful, approved of or not. The question is whether it's yours, whether you looked at it honestly and chose it, or whether you inherited it, absorbed it, and then got so busy living it, you never thought to ask. The people I know who carry the lightest kind of peace didn't find some perfect life. They just stopped living inside a story someone else wrote for them. That's it. That's the whole thing. There's one part of this conversation that today's video can't finish. I've told you the story you're living might not be yours, but I haven't told you how you find out what yours actually is, how you separate the inherited story from the genuine one when you've been living the inherited one so long it feels like your identity. That question has its own video on this channel. The one on how to recognize the specific patterns that reveal where a story was handed to you rather than chosen. That's the one to watch next. You know who needs to hear this right now. You thought of them already. Maybe it's a brother who's working himself into an early grave. Maybe it's a friend who's successful on paper and waking up at 3 in the morning wondering why it doesn't feel like they were promised it would. Send this to them. Not as a lecture, as a hand on the shoulder. And tell me in the comments, what's the one belief you've been living by that you've never once stopped to question? Not the ones you know are wrong. The ones that feel like facts. The ones that feel like you. That's the one I want to hear. And there will be people reading those comments who needed to see your specific answer more than anything I said today. I'm 77 years old. I've made a lot of mistakes. I chased a lot of wrong things for a very long time, but I finally stopped running. The question isn't whether the story you're living is good or bad. It's whether it's yours. If you don't know the answer, that's the answer. Now go live like you believe it.